people are using data? In an optimized shop right now, what are some of the cool things that people are doing that you've seen or have been involved with in your various roles?
Sure, I can take that one. So we're seeing data just being inundated throughout the entire trading organization. Data is becoming more readily available. There's larger amounts of data. What we've experienced is how do you correlate the data and tie it together? So, for example, we deal with a lot of external documents coming into your organization, but it's not enough just to digitize and normalize the information. We want to understand how it fits in. How do you put that data into context? So we've been looking at ways of utilizing graph technology to infer relationships across your data. And really that allows you to paint the complete picture of not only what this data is, but how it fits in, what's the meaning of it, and that's really helps to tie everything together.
Wonderful, right?
I would say basically we have moved away from where people used to deal with like a couple of thousand trades to now, if you look at all the big energy trading houses, we do millions of trades every year. So the key for us is now to have a single source of truth. So whether you are in the trading, you're looking at your positions or your delta, or you are someone in the finance looking at how much is the P&L is, how much the realized cash is, how much is the slab payments, or if you're someone looking at managing the VAR or someone just paying and receiving the invoices. I think your source of truth needs to be the single set of data. So I would say get your trade data right, and then we can talk on the tech on the top of it. So that's the key. If everyone has their own way of, I'm going to say this, cooking the data, then this is definitely going towards a downtrend, and with the millions and millions of trades is coming your way now with the algo trading and everything, I don't think you can deal with it for long term.
Before we move on, in the last session you had mentioned something about how much new data is coming off a lot of the renewable the renewable assets like the batteries and things like that. Has the sort of complexity and speed of that part of the marketplace changed the way you guys are using your data?
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys look at the way the energy trading is going, I think earlier we used to have, if you do asset-backed trading or if you only do the carbon prop trading, it's a very different world. You can have a power plant, or you can have some gas storage, or you can have cargoes, and then you are hedging onto them. Or you may be doing the pure prop trading on the cars, and it's more like derivative style like we used to do in the banks. Renewables is changing the world, because when you have a corporate PPA agreement, all you do, you roughly have a forecast, but that's not your actual. If you have to look at the metadata from each and every plant and every assets, and then you have to build your pipelines and APIs and interfaces to them. Otherwise, it's just a forecast, and if you don't get your actuals right for that one, that's your payoff, and everything is wrong. So that's again a big challenge, and I'm talking about very simple corporate PAs or PPAs. If you go more into now there is optionality in the PPAs, so then you're like the quant models and those things start playing the role as well. So it is adding, but it's challenging, but handsomely challenging.
I can imagine, and then the whatever renewable credits are on top of all of that have to be traded and retired, and interesting. James, about yourself.
Yeah, I guess my viewpoint maybe is slightly narrower than some of the other guys, because I'm looking at more the coffee industry, obviously working for an end user company. I would say there are two aspects to it. One is the data that always was used. There's a lot more analysis possible with that, and as Mark said, what you can add together to actually run that sort of analysis, so multiple tracks of data from multiple systems, going back to the data lake discussion as well. What is possible there is becoming far more powerful. The other aspect I would say is data which wasn't maybe previously used as much, or certainly wasn't combined into a data lake. So there you can even look at your own if you're using Copilot, your own documents, which probably weren't documented or tagged very well in your own system. Open source libraries, so of course Databricks is one of those, I guess, is more well known when you can use open source libraries and tag that along with some of your data. So, for instance, looking at a demand plan, extracting coffee from maybe Latin America and looking at, okay, what is the frost in Brazil? What are we expecting that to be with the current La Nina effect, or looking at risk of logistics? So coming up with what is our plan in 9 to 12 months, that is a lot more powerful than it has been previously.
Excellent, Mark.
So, well, I'd say in the CTRM world, there's two main cool things that are coming out that we're seeing our clients do. One is just that the availability of tools that are able to make use of data is really breaking down the silo that was the ETRM, because historically really you've developed these tools that sit on their own and that hold the data, and increasingly that's moving into some kind of data lake. You've got all sorts of data visualization tools like Snowflake and so on. You're also able to combine it with other data that you can even get from contextualizing tools like Cognite or something along those lines. So we're really seeing almost the opening of the box for the CTRM, which is very cool. The other side of it is also that ability to manage the data between tools is pushing people more into away from the traditional way of having an ETRM, which would be just having one tool, and into an almost a best of breed type environment where they're able to actually choose what works for them in different ways, and then stitching that together, with the support of the tools that will actually help the data. So that's the direction that it's going, and it's basically opening up the ETRM into the broader enterprise in a way that is going to be transformative, I think, both into this industry but also into those enterprises, the trading enterprises.
That's actually a great segue into the next question about, we had a question on some of the things that make, some of the challenges that stand in the way of making this data useful. And then also, what are some of the, changes in the sort of the analytics platforms and things like that that are out there to help with that. And while we're doing that, actually, if we could throw the poll up that we have. There we go. Hey. So the question is, making progress ahead of the pack, a long way to go. Where do you think your organization stands in really leveraging the heck out of its data? So maybe let's start with these folks on the end here who talk to a wide variety of clients and talk about some of the challenges you guys see out there in the field.
Sure. So I can comment on some of the solutions that we've implemented. Typically, we're going to go into a customer, have a very well-defined use case that we're looking to solve, and we'll gear the system or our AI models to solve that particular use case. But what we're finding is you want to be broader than that. You want to create a solution that's not just catered to that one specific question or that one specific use case, because you're collecting data, you want to make it readily available. For example, we digitize documents and we do it in the context of trade confirmations. So we're focused on gathering the economic information from that contract, but we're leaving 80 to 90% of the remaining information on the document unextracted. So what we want to do is start queuing that data up, making it available for questions in the future that we hadn't thought about today. So you really want to organize your solution to not only handle the known requirements, but also prepare for future requirements and make that data really accessible to handle those use cases in the future.
To add on that, I want to know who's saying they're ahead of the pack. So I think definitely from our side, data is a challenge that I think pretty much every single one of our clients have. And as a consultancy, it's an area that we're doubling down on and hiring people who are, system agnostic data specialists, because it is what's going to drive the future of their trading systems and their enterprises. So you could take this in many different ways, but I think it's the biggest challenge that most of the people we work with have.
And by the way, I thought it was very funny that if you looked at that graph like a horse race, ahead of the pack was way behind. But so, how about you gentlemen in the middle here? How have you seen in your business? Where have you seen some of the biggest challenges, and what are some of the biggest innovations that have really moved the needle in terms of your ability to leverage data?
Yeah, I mean, if I speak for myself, then I would more focus on the challenges. So I guess we're not the leader of the pack, not that I voted, but it really goes back to the previous discussion, actually. I mean, it's change management, change management, change management. That's the real struggle, you know. Do you have a data catalog? Do you really have the conventions? Do you have data stewards? Do you have the organization to actually, you know, have that data quality to actually promote it? You know, so it's really, do you have the budget? Do you have the buy-in from the senior management? Now, I would say where I am, maybe partially. So you see in certain areas where there's an immediate result, maybe within manufacturing, maybe within supply chain planning. Yes, I mean, I'm looking at it from a company-wide perspective. In terms of trading in commodities, then sort of it's very ad hoc. So it's not really a system issue. It's very much a people issue. And by the way, it's when I started as an ERP consultant, I guess 25 years ago, we were talking about the same thing. And unfortunately, we're almost replicating the same mistakes in data lakes as we go along.
It seems almost to walk hand in hand with progress, doesn't it?
This is the next round of progress, and probably the next round of mistakes, and maybe
Exactly.
it'll be very similar. But yeah, I mean, everything that the last panel discussed, I think, is very relevant. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ravi, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I have to say here that I believe we at Centric Energy, we believe we are ahead of the pack, at least on this front. And I'm just sitting here, but a lot of credit goes to our senior management, our CEO and CFOs to basically allow the techs to go for the journey. I agree, I totally agree. If you don't have that kind of mindset from the top management, because I would say most of the people in this room, they have a pretty good idea how to sort out their data. And we need to allow those people to start those journeys. There will be some failures, but let it be. We will learn from it. And that's what we have done. We started a massive program, I would say probably 18, 20 months back, to put this data together. Because it's not everything in one place. Like the simple trade, we have some vendor-based product, we use it. For the complex trade, we have some of our in-house. We manage our LNG and BPS differently. But if you look at from when our CEO comes, if you look at management report, what is look at combined, each head of the desk can give their own views. But that's not what he's after, right? When you go to the group CFOs, Centric is a big company, right? You need to have something combined together. And this is what we start putting together. And we talk about, how you put all the schemas, data governance. This is not rocket science, I think most of us knows it. Is your organization allowing you to proceed with the journey and prioritizing it and giving you the...
Just very quickly, one disclaimer. So within the ESG space, I do see this progress, but of course that's legally driven, so then it's slightly different. So that's quite interesting.
I think the key for us is, it is not just helping the management and the control function. It does help trading massively as well. If, let's say, if trading going for a Tarrega auctions tomorrow, and I can't tell them how I'm going to book that trade, big storage assets, or one of my colleagues is going for a corporate PPA, if we can't help them, we can't help them if we cannot capture the trade properly. And we cannot capture the trade properly because our data is not together. So to get everyone together, that's the must-have, and this is the benefit of the profit center as well, that is trading. So it gives benefit to everyone. I would say it's our ability to articulate the problem and get the buying in from everyone. Yeah.
So people, the answer to a lot of it is the challenges are just the right people in the right places, and the governance and the testing. we had a couple questions come in, and actually they very, very different in tone. One's very philosophical, and where I feel like I should say, where there is truth, how useful would it be that all the market rely on the same single source of truth as they exchange data? And is that even possible or realistic to ask for?
I can attempt to field that one. So, I think the key there is who's producing that single source of truth. And we have technology today, such as blockchain, where you can have one single source of truth that can be done through a distributed ledger. Everyone's going to have that. But who put that truth on the blockchain to begin with? Do we trust that source? Because if the source that put the piece of data on the blockchain is not to be trusted, then everyone has invalid data that's distributed and a single source. So that's really not that helpful. So how do you mitigate against that? You're going to want to reconcile or tie that data to another piece of independent data. So for example, we're often processing bills of lading. And as everyone knows, there's been fraud in the market on fictitious bills of lading. So how do you mitigate against that? You're going to want to verify that delivery actually took place and there's an independent record of that product being delivered into maybe a storage location. You might get a storage report from that facility. So single source of truth is great, but you always want to make sure that it's coming from a legitimate source.
And I guess the European Union will find this out, right, with the EUDR. Same thing.
If I would like to add, if you say the single source of truth, if you're talking about your organizations and even with different desks, up to an extent is true, right? You should share your same fair value curve, same fair value trader marks, but in a different organizations, even if you're trading on the same exchange or same trading venue, the prices you get, let's say one example, that's your guideline. What the price ICE gives, that's the guideline. I should be able to have my own quant model and think, the worth of price and the fair value curve, I believe, would be right. Okay, my trader shouldn't go crazy, so we need to have the consensus and some sort of, the framework in place on that one. I won't go into deep detail, but is again, I think that's market is different for everyone. Of course, within an organization, they need to do the same.
Let's move on to the other question, which is really relates to trading decisions made directly on data. If data is driving these trading decisions, will there be an arms race to mine insight from data for trading positions? And it would be, I think, really interesting if there's some thought about how maybe AI fits into that as well. So, and any thoughts in that direction?
Well, I mean, there is an arms race in many ways to get the insights for trading positions, and it depends, market to market, but there has been, tools, particularly things like power, even the sensors that were around power stations that would tell you when they're coming on and off. Now, of course, again, there's this contextualization where you could even have various other sensors or even images of power stations that you could be trying to put in some way into a data lake. It comes down to how can you actually get that into a format that's going to be useful for traders, that they, and actionable for them. But that is really what's at stake. At the end of the day, I think the way that all of these systems are going is very much that the data space is going to own the world. The data holder and organizer, you mentioned Fabric, I think they're a contender, but most of the hyperscalers are trying to push in that direction. And at the end of the day, that's going to be the iPhone, and the SAPs and the ION groups and all of these other people are going to be the apps. And so when you get to that point, that's when trading becomes a very different beast. I think we're a long way away from that, but that's the progression that seems to be happening.
Yeah, I guess it's also down to processing power, because that's always been, the factor within IT, right? So with so much more data, then, you need that processing power, more variables, however good your algorithms may be, and then I guess quantum computing will come into it in the long-term future, which kind of blows some of all this, out of the water potentially.
If allowed to add here, just alluding from there, is speed and accuracy. I think that's the key when you talk about the trading decision and on algo, and obviously AI help on that one. But AI is as good as bad as what kind of question you are asking to it. So it's a model, as you all know, it's a LLM model, as an argument say. You have to make sure you get your prompt right. That means how quickly you can calculate the prompt using the data you are using to feed to your algo for that decision making. And then of course you got tons and tons of million of processor and the Gen AI model behind to give you an output back, and then you execute that decision on an exchange wherever you are trading. So that is speed, accuracy, and your prompt engineering. I would say those are the three key things we are looking at, and I believe you need to get that right.
There's another question as well.
Yeah, there is, and that we do have a question about organizational change management. I think I want to land on that since we've got about 8 minutes left or so. Let's go to a question about sort of ad hoc use of data. Now that we've talked a lot about sort of systematic use, but how are maybe analysts able to use it for ad hoc type of situations and access it, make sure it's accurate, make sure it's accessible?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to further emphasize maybe what we've already talked about is making your data easily accessible, providing it in a real-time, accurate way. So you want to make sure that the data is available for that analyst, so he can load it into, let's say he's writing a Python script, he's using an R program, he might have a theory that he wants access to data from a variety of systems. If you can centralize the way in which the data is accessed, maybe through your data lake, but now you have the problem if you want to make sure your data lake is up to date. So there's a lot of technical challenges, but the key is making your data easily accessible in real time.
I think the other thing, James touched on catalogs for data, and definitely from a CTRM perspective, it's one thing that we see is going to be important going to the future because it's a niche. That cataloging and making people aware of the availability of data is so important because it is applicable in many different areas, but people just don't know it exists. So you can create all of the high-tech integrations to everything that you want to, but if people don't know it's there, they're not going to pull on it.
Yeah, I guess the dilemma is self-service within an organization. So citizen developers or people able to do that, Power BI or Python or Alteryx or whatever, all the lovely tooling. But how do you structure that? How do you make? I think within JD we once looked at, and we had something like 800 or 900 Power Apps that were lying there unused, which had once been developed within a maybe 18-month period, so not that long. So how do you structure that? How do you ensure that someone doesn't decide to extract all the data or run something which is costing you a huge amount in terms of performance and, of course, money, licensing? So there's maybe not a right answer. It maybe depends on the company and what it is you're trying to achieve. But I think that's a challenge, how you structure self-service going forward.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to the question of change management. I find that question, who's responsible for data as an asset in an enterprise? Isn't the answer like everything? If things are going well, a lot of people. And when things are going badly, usually one person. Let's talk about this. What sort of organizational change management issues are involved in data-driven decision making? Which kind of encompasses that, who's responsible, what are the roles for, governance, for testing, for, ensuring that nothing has changed, that the source hasn't changed, that things are being flagged, things like that. So, and then teaching people to use it. So it's a big question. What goes into that?
I mean, from our perspective, we would definitely, I mean, we have an advisory practice that tries to work through a lot of these different issues, and it's so subjective, and you really need to actually go back to the business and try work out, what their structure is, what they require, and try and build out the framework from there. I don't know that you can have a one-size-fits-all type approach to this type of thing. It's even within a niche, even if you were to say oil trading or power trading, I don't think you could do that.
Yeah, I can handle this from, so we recently went through a SOC 2 audit at ClearOpx to get our SOC 2 certificate. Having a well-defined data policy, making sure everyone's clear on the proper handling of data, how to secure the data. Data's being used throughout the entire organization at every level. So the proper handling, if you're downloading, say, some sensitive data and you do it to your laptop, that might not be advisable. So I think having the proper controls in place, making sure everyone's aware of those controls, and defining that policy is really key to properly managing the asset. And data is an asset that you want to protect.